What if the person everyone mocks is hiding a secret so powerful it could turn the tables on the richest man in the city? In this story, a CEO's cruel joke takes a shocking turn when a janitor's hidden past is revealed, changing lives forever. Stay tuned because what happens next will leave you speechless. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join this channel for more heart-pounding, emotional stories that touch the soul and blow your mind. Ride this horse and I'll marry you. The arrogant CEO Alexander Blackwood sneered one cold autumn morning in front of his employees, mocking the frail old janitor named Thomas, who quietly scrubbed the marble floors of the corporate lobby, and the entire office erupted in cruel laughter. For Alexander was known for his ruthless sense of humor and his obsession with humiliating those beneath him. And though Thomas never raised his eyes, everyone knew he was the silent target of ridicule. Yet no one dared defend him, because who would risk the wrath of a billionaire who had built empires out of steel and glass? But little did they know that the janitor's silence was not weakness. It was the shield of a man carrying secrets deeper than any vault Alexander had ever locked. And as the cruel challenge echoed through the hall, Thomas slowly straightened, his wrinkled hands gripping the mop handle like a staff, his tired blue eyes meeting Alexander's with a calmness that unsettled even the most hardened executives. And for a moment the laughter faltered, but Alexander doubled down, snapping his fingers at the guards to bring in the wild stallion he had bought from an Arabian auction. A beast untamed and dangerous, its eyes burning with fire, its hooves striking sparks as it was dragged into the courtyard. And the employees gasped, for this was no ordinary horse. This was a monster of muscle and fury that had thrown seasoned riders and nearly trampled grooms to death. And Alexander smirked, confident that the janitor would refuse and once again become the butt of his cruel games. But to everyone's shock, Thomas quietly laid down his mop, removed the ragged gloves from his hands and whispered, "If I ride this horse, will you keep your word?" And though Alexander chuckled, sensing entertainment rather than challenge, he arrogantly nodded. "Yes, old man, if you ride him, I'll marry you myself," mocking his masculinity. But the words were sealed, and the courtyard fell into a tense silence as Thomas walked toward the stallion, every step carrying the weight of unspoken history. And as he approached the beast, something strange happened. The stallion, known for its rage, stopped thrashing, its wild eyes softening as though recognizing an old master, and a murmur ran through the crowd. And then Thomas placed a steady hand on its mane, whispered words no one could hear, and in one fluid motion mounted the horse, who instead of bucking or charging, bowed its head and carried him gracefully across the yard, its thunderous hooves like music against the stone. And the employees gasped, some crossing themselves as though witnessing a miracle, and Alexander's smirk froze, his laughter dying in his throat as his mind raced. How could a mere janitor tame a beast that had defied professional trainers? And as Thomas rode in a circle and dismounted effortlessly, the courtyard erupted with astonishment. But before anyone could cheer, Alexander stepped forward, his face pale with something darker than anger, fear, for he had recognized the way Thomas held the reins, the way he whispered in the horse's ear. It was the style of a legendary equestrian champion who had vanished 25 years ago after a scandal that shook the aristocratic elite, a man who had once been a decorated war hero, a rider for kings and generals, known only as the Phantom Rider, a man believed dead after a fire destroyed his family estate. And as Alexander stammered, "Who are you?" Thomas turned, his eyes glistening with pain and dignity, and said softly, "The man you mock is the man your father once betrayed." And suddenly the story twisted deeper than anyone expected, for it was revealed that Thomas had once been Thomas Whitmore, heir to a vast fortune, betrayed by Alexander's father in a fraudulent deal that stripped him of everything, leaving him destitute and forcing him into the shadows, living as a janitor to survive, while silently watching the empire that had been built on his stolen inheritance. And Alexander staggered back, his mind unraveling, because the documents of his father's first fortune acquisition were locked in a sealed vault that no one outside the family knew. Yet this janitor was speaking the truth with details only a victim could know. And the employees, once mocking, now stared in awe and shame, realizing the man they ridiculed was a fallen king in disguise, a man of resilience and broken glory. And Thomas, his voice trembling but steady, continued, I never revealed myself because bitterness destroys the soul, but today your arrogance forced me to break my silence. And he pulled from his coat a weathered envelope, sealed with wax, containing documents of proof. And as Alexander snatched them open, his face drained of blood. For inside were deeds, signatures, and letters his father had tried to burn. Evidence that the Blackwood Empire was built on theft. And suddenly the balance of power shifted like a landslide. The janitor no longer the victim, but the rightful heir, and murmurs rose among the staff, whispers of justice, whispers of destiny, until Alexander, shaking, cried out, Why didn't you fight back all these years? And Thomas answered, Because the world did not need another greedy man clawing for wealth. It needed a servant who remembered humility. And yet I never stopped believing the truth would reveal itself in its own time. And at that moment the stallion neighed, pawing the ground as though confirming the words, and tears welled in the eyes of the staff who saw more than a man. They saw resilience turned into flesh, dignity walking among them, and as silence fell heavier than stone, Alexander collapsed to his knees, trembling before the janitor he once mocked, unable to speak, unable to laugh, his empire of cruelty cracking before the weight of truth. And Thomas placed a gentle hand on his shoulder, whispering, Rise, young man, for power means nothing if it cannot lift others with it. And instead of vengeance, he offered forgiveness. In the courtyard, once filled with scorn, filled with sobs as hardened men and women wept openly at the miracle of grace. And Alexander, broken, swore to change his ways, to lead with humility, though the scars of his arrogance would haunt him forever. And as the sun broke through the clouds, its golden light spilling upon the scene, it felt less like the end of a humiliation and more like the beginning of a legend. The story of a janitor who was more than a servant, more than a forgotten name. He was the man who taught a billionaire the worth of humanity. And though the employees returned to their routines, none of them ever forgot the day when the janitor rode the impossible horse, silenced arrogance, and left an empire trembling with truth. For miracles do not always come with fire from heaven. Sometimes they come in the quiet strength of a man who waits for justice, until time itself bows to his endurance. And that is why even today, whispered in the halls of the company and sung in the taverns of the city, people say, Respect the silent ones, for they may carry secrets that kings fear. And thus the legend of Thomas Whitmore, the janitor, the rider, the betrayed heir, lives forever as a reminder that no man should ever be mocked, for the soul you laugh at today might be the very soul that humbles you tomorrow.